So Jerry, I actually want to show these two pictures first, right? And because and one of the brothers I know, he's actually from Charleston too, and he was living in Costa Rica teaching. And then another brother, both me and Diallo know, but I don't know if everybody can see that. But he talks about him being a middle school math teacher, an international middle school math teacher, and he wanted to create this Black History Month trailer that he shows his students all over the world. And on there, he has Woman King, Amistad, Birth of a Nation, and all these other things. Now, so again, I find it very frustrating that the argument to teach history would be through medias. And then you have another brother who, talks about Mansa Musa movie possibly being made. And in the comments, I was able to kind of like struggle with him a little bit. Like, I'm not sure that hindsight we want to even celebrate him. But when you think about, again, Vernon, and I actually shared Vernon philosophy with the second brother. The first brother, I'm not sure he'd be willing to receive it, but I shared Vernon philosophy with him. And I'm curious, like, I think we talked about this before in terms of your students and how they show up in the class with their analysis being built off of maybe movies and lyrics, or like the most radical they can get, or just expecting movies and entertainment to be a form of education. And I just wonder how you're still struggling with that. How often do your students even get to meet this Vernon philosophy kind of push? And then just some
they get it from me every semester it comes up. But my first thought was with that last picture with Kugler and what's my man's name? Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
That I just saw the latest around Sylvester Stallone's critique of the Creed series and the fact that Irvin Winkler, the producer in Hollywood, owns the rights and controls the legacy of Rocky. So my first thought is, even with a fictitious white male Rocky fighter, the legacy and the history and the narrative around that is outside of the control of its creator in Sylvester Stallone, who won't even says he won't even continue to watch the Creed series, given where that he's lost control of the direction of the story. So when I see the people who are involved in it, so even just around the narrative of a Rocky, there is a struggle over control where the industry still determines, even above the creator, the white male creator, who himself is a superstar. If Stallone can't manage the narrative of Rocky, what hope can we expect for Michael B. Jordan and Kugler to manage the narrative of all of African world history, which they apparently are going to be the leaders of conveying over the next generation or two? So that was my very first thought when you sent that to us the other day.
Yeah.
Again, what I should do is just do more to bring the specifics to this show and elsewhere. But if we look at specifically what has been said around counterinsurgency, shout out to Matt Capitalism and Dylan Rodriguez. If we look more carefully at what the founders of the mass communication in the U.S. have said, shout out to my political nemeses like Paul Lazarsfeld and Harold Laswell, they've said the film in particular, the cinema in particular, is designed to play a very specific role in conveying a level of authenticity, dominance of narrative, that unlike other forms of media, which are meant to do the same thing, is going to be most effective. So that's at least from their perspective. So even before we start to think about, which again I think should be the last thing we consider, but maybe the entry point as a first question to ask. But before we even get to questions about do we like something, we should be raising questions about how it got here. How is this the narrative? How is this the story that's getting to be told? How is this the many theaters it's getting released in? I mean, how many, you know, it's, you know, whether you get in 100 theaters or 4,000 theaters, you know, is indicative of what the industry is saying they want done. So on and so on and so on and so forth. So all that said, yeah, just the specifics of your question. It comes up for me all the time. Students bring it into the classroom all the time, giving me opportunity to bring up the Vernon philosophy, because it's almost like a scientific formulaic occurrence at this point. Students always make reference to films. A woman this semester just said a week or two ago, again, what happened to me 30 years ago in the class, or 20 years ago, 25 years ago in the classroom, where she still refers to Malcolm X as Denzel, because that was her introduction to Malcolm. So she still has to walk herself consciously through the step of not calling Malcolm Denzel. So right there, so then why? And then I'll say it, I shared it yesterday or the other day. It was an honor that a student of mine brought with him a friend to our class specifically to talk about the Bob Marley film. And because his friend is on spring break at Howard, so he brought his friend to Morgan to come to my class to have this conversation. I think it's an honor that students would want to do that and spend spring break in a classroom discussing a film. But they were intrigued by the Vernon philosophy and were, in this case, with one of the students, excited about having a sort of a simple analytical tool that he could bring into the movie theater when he goes to see these movies. Because, like with many of us, there is this intuitive, even before we have the vocabulary, we're like, man, this something might be off here. Right. So anyway, so that's
before you go, Diallo, Jared, could you briefly explain what the Vernon philosophy is in a snapshot for the people?
Well, I was just about to say how much I admire the fact that y'all could talk about Black media avoidance for several minutes without explaining it to the audience.
Well, I mean, they've heard it a lot. Yeah. They heard it a lot, but go ahead, Jared.
But the short of it is, Vernon.
Who are the 573 people in the live right now, Geechee?
There's David, there's I Am Manifesto, one. There's Ricky Ryan, there's Johnny Duopoly, there's Diallo's #1 fan. I mean, there's a bunch of people. Go ahead, Jared.
So Vernon philosophy of Black media avoid.
All y'all are like God. He knows the number of hair on your head. He's so low.
Google Analytics is thorough. It's thorough. The surveillance is thorough. So the Vernon philosophy, named after my homeboy Vernon. Shout out to Vernon, who with whom I used to work at a pizzeria, and he said years ago that he didn't want to see any films featuring Black people. A brother himself, Morgan State grad, by the way, and I at the time thought it was wild to make that assertion that I don't want to see movies with Black people in it. And I said, why? He said, because we always look bad. And then my sort of joke became 25 years later, much student loan debt, thankfully now forgiven. I came to the same conclusion that after reading and studying the political context in which films are made, particularly here, that no oppressed group should look to see themselves in film, despite that being the attempt, because it's always going to be a fraudulent projection of that community. So it's not calling for a physical boycott. It's more of an intellectual one, just as a prophylactic of sorts to prepare yourself to deal with something when you go see these films or engage this media, and then to encouragement to raise certain questions. How do we know what we know? Why do we like what we like? And think critically about the stories, the narratives, and the product that is put before us. So that's basically what the Vernon philosophy is.
So I thought about, so there's a way in which I used to engage when I think I told y'all about, I facilitated Bible study groups, and there was like atheists in there, Hebrew Israelites, Christians, Muslims, whatever. And the goal was to like study it or deal with the book in a certain type of way. And so one of the things was, there was like 3 lessons in everything that you read. There's the moral lesson, the historical lesson, and then the doctrinal lesson, which meaning like a political call to action or what you should be doing. And I wonder if you think it's appropriate including entertainment, to have some type of lens like that. Okay, the moral lessons of this movie, the historical lessons, see what's accurate, what's not, and then what is to be done after you watch the film. So Diallo first, but I wonder if you think that's too much to ask when people are engaging in something that they might say is, pleasure or fun or whatever. And I'm just thinking that with all type of experiences, we should have some type of, I guess, intention or I mean, I guess even in relations, like I don't think you should have mindless, aimless sex. I think you should even have some type of intention in that. So what do you think in terms of engaging entertainment, looking for moral lessons that we can probably dialogue about, historical accuracy, and then the call to action afterwards? What do you think, Diallo?
Well, what you're talking about is the phenomenon of escapism. When people attempt to say, well, I'm just trying to enjoy it. It's just a good song. Can we just enjoy a movie? Can we enjoy anything? That's not being entertained. Ignorance is bliss, but bliss is also ignorance. So anything that you feel compelled to turn off your critical mind, to shut down your intellect, to deflect the messages or imagery in order to enjoy something. If you have to literally psychologically mutate or warp yourself in order to consume or enjoy something, then you should probably reject it. So I think that there's a lot of shit I enjoy, a lot of shitty shit I enjoy, like from junk food to junk media. But my media diet, just like everything else in my life, all my relationships have to be curated, and I have to understand that when I am engaging with garbage, there are lessons to be learned there. There are things to be drawn there. I also, when I play video games, and there's a lot of embedded messages and imagery and stuff in video games. So I think that as individual and as a community, whenever we find ourselves compelled or motivated or making excuses for a piece of media that we enjoy, I don't think we are there to defend media. You do better to dissect and critique any media that you enjoy than you are to just reflexively defend it or try to make excuses saying, hey, can we just enjoy it, or it's good enough. So I think that media critique, dissection, criticism should be part of and understood to be part of the enjoyment. It should be part of how we engage with media myself. So but I think when people go there, escapism is a fallacy. There's really no sanctuary. There's nowhere you can escape to. So even if something is giving you the illusion that you're avoiding or escaping something, it's harming you.
Jared, I mean, what do you think in terms of, I don't want to say it's forced expectation, but again, like you're watching this film, there should be a way for you to be like, okay, morally, I kind of learned this. I think about this. Historically, this is accurate or inaccurate. And then there should be some type of action afterwards. Is that asking too much for action afterwards?
Well, again, as I've to what people have said in the chat a little bit that I've seen, they're right that the only thing that I've really added to what Vernon said all those years ago is maybe some detail and context around why the Vernon philosophy is correct, why he would be reacting the way he was reacting, and there's maybe some specifics around what the intent is in the first place, but it also, the Vernon philosophy is specifically, again, what I call an intellectual boycott, because it's not making a specific call to action other than to investigate critically what it is we're engaging, especially when we like it. That to me, so methodologically, what I try to do is whenever I feel myself having an emotion as I'm watching a film, to gravitate towards it. not suppress it in the sense that or to try to not feel it, but to continue to ask, well, what is it that this scene or film is getting me to think narratively? Why is it making me have whatever emotion? And then what is it intending to have me do with that? What frame is it putting on that? So like the other day when we're talking to May Gant about Origin, they're intentionally dragging the viewer, particularly the Black viewer, through all kinds of horrific, like he said, they want you to feel the trauma. They want you to suffer. So then the question becomes, for me, not, let me turn it off and run away from the pain that's making me feel. The question is, one of them is, what is the intent behind, narratively speaking? What do they want me to do with it? Why are they making me feel this way? What do they want me to do with it? And then as you're asking, I think, what do they want done as a result? Which is where I think the biggest room for critique is, because ultimately most of these products want, as a result, some sort of self-reflection or look internally to the Black community for all the causes of the problem, or at best vote for a Democrat, right. That kind of solution. So or some other market-based solution. So yeah.
So what are, like, I remember, so I've actually quite often, I mean, maybe I'm into many conversations with artists, but I've actually shared Vernon philosophy quite often, and even talking about origins and this like constant redefining race relations with Vernon was saying, or what you were saying in the Vernon piece. And so I thought about like how there's this argument that funeral homes are recession-proof business. And then I'm thinking of like the ability to sully a mass population's having some type of historical material analysis by entertainers, right? So doing a movie, partner up with a corporation. It seemed like that thing is always available to Black people, I guess, in a certain space. And then this idea of like being recognized from power, recognized by power, I also see it as like people's proximity to whiteness. So once you're on the screen, you have this type of money, you'll be able to, in rooms with these people, like the audience being able to see you credible because, you know, now you're, you know, in front of white people. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just think the conflict I have is people think that I'm saying that they shouldn't have art expression, and it's more of an ego response that they don't think that they're telling a particular idea or they're subscribing to status quo dominant narratives. They don't think they're doing that when they're expressing art. And I always argue is like you have to, any figure that you have to present them in a way that you've studied them. And even when I told y'all like Shaka King came to Costa Rica, and the brother who had that first picture up, I asked Shaka a couple questions, and then Shaka was like, well, I don't get into politics. I'm not even political. I said, well, why would you make a film about a major political figure? And then after the event, you could tell the people that was there, like the Black people that I know, they kind of felt some type of way, because I'm like, I wasn't challenging him. I was just asking some questions that he was trying to evade, because he claimed that he made Fred Hampton Jr. proud. And I'm like, well, I remember Fred said that he punched some walls out, right? And then after we was walking out the theater, the brother was like, well, you know, I mean, I knew you was going to ask that type of question. But if this film didn't get out, most people wouldn't even know about Fred Hampton. So there's that argument of like, well, they wouldn't know about it, and it's doing a service. Even if it's not told right, at least somebody's telling about it. And now he's on the big screen. So yeah, I don't know. Like that's how my arguments go. And it's not that I don't want you to have some type of artistic expression. It's that you should be more responsible with, again, your call to action, intentionally or unintentionally, that you're going to have with that film. And the call to action could be redefining race relations. And
so just quickly before I forget, one, please, everybody, to that point about Fred Jr., go to the platform and watch the multiple appearances that I and we have had with Fred Jr. talking about the film. And I don't think Shaka's description will hold up. And similarly, please check the platform for our discussion with Dhoruba bin Wahad about Fred Hampton. And as you see scrolling at the bottom, everybody, if you can show Dhoruba any financial support, he is again in need of it because he is struggling to keep up with the pay to play healthcare he's forced to deal with. And as he continues to age, again, there's no appropriate healthcare for anybody, much less aging revolutionaries. And so if you are at all able, you see scrolling beneath us Dhoruba's PayPal and Cash App. You can support him directly. And yeah, so but also, yeah, but one of the reasons why we want to show him so much support is because of the analysis that Dhoruba continues to offer, including as it relates to Fred Hampton. And I think another reason why the claim that the popular rendition of these histories and people is a net positive, because it leaves a document for people to go and research. I think it works exactly in the opposite way. It suppresses interest and a desire to follow up in the way that they're produced and disseminated. But I encourage people to check those discussions for more on that.
Diallo, do you, before we wrap, do you have a response or a feeling about this? If it didn't make it to the major movie screen, people wouldn't know about it. Do you have like a argument for that?
That's obviously not true. Even if it may have been true in the past. You look at individuals like Tyler Perry. He was on local stages, and the bootlegged CDs and DVDs, CDs, the bootleg VHS that passed around. So actually, the underground is what brought him into it. So no, that's just demonstrably untrue. There's a lot of underground and regional and localized media and culture, music. From you go to Kansas City, you go to Memphis, Tennessee, and you got people who are hometown heroes and known by everyone, but they're not on the international or national stage. So that's not true. For better or for worse, it is what it is. But it's all been commodified and weaponized against us in one way or another. But that's just not true, for what it's worth.
So if they made a movie 50 years from now about buying power or money or whatever, the cast can either read Jared's book, or they're gonna read what's the lady name that you was arguing with the other day, or Brooke Stevens, whatever her name. And even with Woman King, I remember there Viola Davis was saying that the writer made sure that she had to read these few books. And so like there's not a way to engage in any of at least that type of entertainment, movies and stuff, without having the writer have some type of politic or something that they studied that even makes them confident enough that they can tell a story. So